And then there were 16, so we're back for our March Madness special because two of those teams from right here in the mitten, Jacob, Blake, Maddie, Steven, and Matt, this is our March Madness special, but it also has to be a Michigan apology tour. Out in the round of 32, upset in the first round, Congratulations, Blake. You do not have to apologize to the Wolverines today.
Nope, that's the first time I think in my life that I don't have to apologize to the Wolverines.
That's why you're wearing the blue and gold tie.
That's why, yes, for once in my life.
Outside of 10-seeded Arkansas, who is the highest remaining seed, I think Michigan might have been the biggest surprise of the first weekend that is still alive at least. I don't know what to think of this team. They were dead in the water 2 weeks ago. They were done. They didn't look like they belonged with the big boys. Then they won the Big Ten tournament. Then they won 2 games over the weekend, upsetting number 4 Texas A&M. Matt, we'll start with you. Were you surprised with what Michigan did over the weekend? Going back to the Big Ten tournament, they continue that momentum. Was that surprising? I don't know what to think of this team, but props to Dusty May.
A little bit, yeah, because in the recent past, it's kind of been the kiss of death that if you do well in the Big Ten tournament, you get into the NCAA tournament, and then you're kind of dead in the water. But the entire Big Ten, for once, did really, really well in the first round, kind of tapered off a little bit in the second round, but hey, Michigan took care of business, especially in that second game against Texas A&M, proving the Big Ten is better than the SEC, Jacob.
How many SEC teams are still alive out of the 16 remaining?
7?
I don't know, but I bet you do.
7.
Nearly half the board, but continue.
More than half for the Big Ten, though, right? We had 8 to start.
There is, I don't know.
4 left.
Yeah,
There's 4 left?
4 left.
Oh,
Yeah.
Purdue. We did worse than I thought.
Yeah.
So we're even, is what you're saying. Yeah, but I think, like you said, it's an apology tour for us. I definitely thought that there was at least a shot that UC San Diego was going to upset Michigan. Proved me wrong on that, despite the close choke, and then, yeah, took care of A&M.
You guys are mean to Michigan. You
Yes.
two over here. They're still alive. You got to say something nice about them. They're going to face 1-seeded Auburn next, the 1 seed in the entire tournament. Do they have a chance against Auburn?
I honestly think they do have a chance this time around. And I thought they were
There's
one of
your
those
something nice.
coin flip teams where I think they could upset anybody, but at the same time I thought they could have lost to UC San Diego, which was really close. It's one of those things where, I mean, as long as Golden and Wolf are looking how they're looking and playing off of each other and just doing it so well, they're a hard team to beat. But the other thing about that is if either one of them falter, then I don't see them being able to even come close in a game. But they both had good outings so far. Trey Donaldson also had some good outings as well. So I think it's one of those teams where they could still make another upset. And I kind of want them in the Elite Eight. I kind of want to beat them that third time around.
I was going to get to that. Maddie, what did you like out of Michigan? Again, do you think they can hang with Auburn?
I don't think so. As much
that
as
could be a good thing for Michigan fans that you said that.
Yeah, as much as I think that they've had a really good run so far this tournament, I think that Auburn's just getting started. They haven't been playing the best, and I think this is really where they kick it into gear. And Michigan relies on their bigs so much that I don't think they're going to be able to keep up that energy going into a team like this.
Blake, why did you have them in the Sweet 16?
Well, firstly, the UC San Diego game was a popular upset pick, and I just wasn't feeling it. And now UC San Diego almost pulled that off. They had that good comeback in the second half. Texas A&M, I just was never sold on them throughout the season. Their offense,
they were in my Final Four.
They were in your Final Four, but I wasn't sold on Texas A&M's offense throughout the year. Now they did score a lot of points against Michigan, but down the stretch, those final 5 minutes, Michigan took over the game. And in terms of the turnover battle, and this has been Michigan's biggest negative all season long. Yeah, did they have some turnovers against UC San Diego? That was their strength. But against Texas A&M, down the final 5 minutes, they locked down. And if they can do that against Auburn, I'm not saying they will win because Auburn by far deserves to be the overall 1 seed. But they can make this a very interesting game, and Michigan has shown all season long they play these tight games. You never know in March. So I still think Auburn wins. I think Auburn is by far a better team, but that's the beauty of March Madness.
Michigan State, on the other hand, they didn't play great for a majority of the weekend. I was just telling Blake off camera, they earned the 2 seed throughout the whole season, and they're lucky they did, getting to play Bryant and then New Mexico. If they were playing the path that Michigan had, they might not be alive right now, but they earned that 2 seed. Blake, they're going to have to play a whole lot better this weekend, but they still get, I don't want to call Ole Miss weak, but one of the weaker teams left in the field.
The biggest thing with Michigan State is that, and this has been their MO all season long, start slow in the first half and then really turn up the intensity in the second half, or at least wear teams down. They're still going to play that way. I don't think you're going to change that after 30-some games of the season. But they really have to reduce the turnovers, the poor shooting in the first half, to not put themselves in such a hole, because it's going to get more and more difficult to get out of that hole against these teams as if you try to keep advancing into the tournament. But I will say with Michigan State, they just showed their depth is unbelievable. Jace Richardson had not a good game. He'll be the first one to say that was his worst game of the season, probably. And they still won by 8 points against a very difficult New Mexico team that has a lot of size, a lot of length, and does match up to Michigan State very well. But Michigan State wore them down with all the role players that they just can attack people with.
Maddie, Michigan State trailed in the first half, most of it against Bryant.
Yeah.
They trailed by 10 in the first half against New Mexico. Are you worried for this team now facing a tougher opponent this weekend?
Yeah, you know, a lot of the players that I assumed would do really well in this tournament haven't been. And a lot of the players that I didn't think were going to do well in this tournament have been. You know, Frankie Fiddler really turned it on in this last game. I know Blake and I were pretty excited about that. Cohen Carr has been doing great. Jace Richardson, not so much. Jaden Akins, not so much. Trey Holloman, not so much. You know, I think that if Tom Izzo's strategy is going to be staying with the smaller players, that's going to be an interesting tactic against Ole Miss, but I think this is where they really gear up, and I don't see them being a problem versus Ole Miss.
Steven, you have them in the Final Four in your bracket.
National
you have
champion.
them national champion. Are you still feeling confident in that pick here as we enter the Sweet 16?
I am, surprisingly enough, and that's for a couple of different reasons. So first off, I think that, like Maddie said, the players that you didn't think were going to step up are starting to step up. And Frankie Fiddler, this guy just, he hangs out at the free throw stripe. That's where he hangs out, and he can fit. Whether or not he can finish, he can get those shots. Cohen Carr, being probably the best free throw shooter so far this tournament, is not what I had on my bingo card, and I see this as a good problem to have, because you know Michigan State is a good free throw shooting team. I think they're going to step it up, and so I don't think that's going to be a problem down the stretch. The issues that I see are going to be, do you keep Zapala on the starting lineup, or do you start mixing that up? Because outside of those 2.5 minutes he plays in the first and then a few minutes in the second, he doesn't really produce much. So what do you want out of him, really? Do you need to switch up that lineup, or do you want to keep it the same because that's what's been working for you? So I do think there's some hurdles they have to jump through. But as far as against Ole Miss, I don't see a problem there. And like I said before, I want Michigan in the Elite Eight, and I think we can beat them a third time around.
Matt, your advice was you're at the water cooler, the people making their brackets, get rid of Michigan, get rid of Michigan State. It was good advice at the time, but not so much anymore because both are still hanging around.
I will say, I don't think that's true.
You know what? Yeah, go
I don't
go
think
ahead.
that's true. Because the advice is, don't pick Michigan or Michigan State as your national champion. Even better if you don't have either of them in the Final Four. Sweet 16, I'm not so worried about that because you only get 1 point for a first round win. You only get 2 points for a second round win. The points that matter are the points at the end. So my advice still stands. If you are, well, you already made your picks, but I still feel confident about.
You know what? I still like it. Do you see a path where one of these teams gets to the Final Four? They're going to have to beat Auburn. Michigan's going to have to beat Auburn, and then, well, Michigan State could run into Auburn as well. But do you see either one of these teams getting to the Final Four?
I kind of do a little bit. You know, Michigan is playing a little bit better than we expected, and Michigan State, you know, we talked a little bit about, are you worried after their performances against Bryant and New Mexico? I'm not so much, because you had games against a 15 seed and a 10 seed that you know, if you're a Michigan State fan, you think, yeah, they should have blown those teams out. However, the upside to the fact that they didn't is now that they've put themselves in a high-pressure situation, they're battle-tested going down the stretch. And every game from now on is going to be a battle, like it or not. So, I think they put themselves in that mindset. Maybe they've gotten themselves in some situations that they would have rather not been in and had to come back and win those games. But I think that's going to pay off in the end.
Right now, we're looking at a Sweet 16 that has all the ones, all the twos. It was a very chalky first round, but that's going to create some really good games here in the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight. I know a lot of us had Michigan State, Florida, Duke, Auburn, Houston, who might have been the most impressive team through the first weekend. Did anybody's opinion change this weekend on who might be the national champion?
Not for me. Did St. John's was a 2?
Thank you. 4, all the ones, 3
but
and
still,
the 2.
very impressive. I was just trying to think about it. I thought St. John's was a 3, by the way. So
Gone.
All right.
2, get
They're
rid of them.
2.
Fraudulent 2.
But,
get rid of them.
But they were also not ranked before the season,
Right.
so that did come true for them. I think the biggest thing is that this has been the phrase chalky March Madness, very little upset. I don't count Arkansas as a 10 seed as a Cinderella story by any means. You play in the SEC. That's not a Cinderella. Yeah, I don't think my pick of the national champion has changed. I have Florida winning the national championship, and I think that win against UConn really proves how tough they are. UConn, 2-time defending champion.
Get Dan Hurley out of here.
Yeah,
Anyways.
I think that game, they were down most of the second half. To come back and sneak out a victory, most teams wouldn't do so against UConn and a Dan Hurley coach team. I think Florida just has shooters on the outside. They can go big. I just don't see a scenario where it's not Florida and Duke in the national championship. Both those teams just seem light years beyond everyone else right now.
Maddie, national champion, did your opinion change at all?
Not a lot. My opinion, I figured that it was going to be a 1 seed type of game. I think, to disagree with Blake here, I think that Florida's tired. I think they're tired. They've had some tough matchups. I think Maryland's really going to give them a run for their money. I can see that as a possible upset. I also think BYU has really been a surprising team to watch. They've been doing really well, and I think they're going to, advance maybe a little further than anyone thought. But overall, I think everyone has been performing as expected.
That BYU Alabama game, by the way, first to 100.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
We love offense, so I'm okay with that. Yeah. Steven, national champion. Stay the same for you.
Oh, yeah. Spartans all the way.
Okay. I like it. I like it. You are true to the green and
Yes,
white.
and part of that, real quick, is, this is an old-fashioned Izzo team. It's the 25th anniversary of his national championship with Jason Richardson. Now his son, Jace Richardson, has the chance to ink it in the history books as well. It's perfect. It's exactly how it should be written. And if it's written another way, I'm just going to block it out. La, la, la.
I had Houston over Auburn. I will stick with that pick, keeping with the trend, sticking to your guns. I think Kelvin Sampson's attitude in a press conference this past weekend showed me a lot. He was more concerned that the reporter called Gonzaga, and he wanted to make sure they got it right that it's Gonzaga. So that just shows you where his mindset is confidence-wise. He's not too worried, and I wouldn't be either. Houston's looking good, and on the other side of the bracket, I think I have a lot of confidence in Bruce Pearl as well to get it done at Auburn.
I will say about Houston, what a tough path they have.
Yeah.
To face Gonzaga, that was a very tough matchup, and now you got to face Purdue in Indianapolis, which is going to be a home
And
game.
everybody was worried about Gonzaga in the last round. They crushed them.
And and then you have to go face a Tennessee team. I know every team's path is tough, but if Houston can make it past Purdue, I think they're going to beat Tennessee if Tennessee can pass their matchup. Who's Tennessee playing, by the way?
Somebody's got the bracket.
Yeah,
Maddie, help us out here.
Oh, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Oh,
SEC,
that's a
gonna
game.
be
That'll be a
Wow,
game.
that's a game right there.
All right, so we're going to be watching all the games, of course, but the Michigan State-Michigan region is going to be a lot of fun. We'll end with this. Everybody tell me who's coming out of that region, and do we see Michigan State play for the first ever time in the NCAA tournament?
I'm going Michigan State. Got to stick to what I have in my Final Four. Michigan State's coming out of that
Do we
region.
see the two play for a third time this season?
Nope. Auburn's going to win.
Okay, Maddie.
Yeah, I agree with Blake. I think Auburn's going to win. I think Michigan State's going to win, and that's going to be our matchup.
I'll be rooting for Michigan, and look, Danny Wolf's already done this.
So
once.
is it going to be hard for you to root for Michigan, but because of what Michigan State did to the Wolverines the first 2 times this year?
I mean, I will root for Michigan. This will be like one of the. I'm rooting for Michigan purely out of spite, so that Michigan State can beat them one more time.
It'll be one of those things because the state game is first. So if State loses,
then I won't be. Then there's no
go
rooting.
Tigers.
At 9:45 on Friday night, if Michigan State won, I want to see a Go Blue Facebook post from you.
All right. Okay. If Michigan State wins.
If Michigan State wins.
Yes. Okay, I will do that. But one thing I want to say, too, is, I mean, Danny Wolf upset Auburn last year on Yale. So can he do it again? I hope so, as long as Michigan State wins.
As long as Michigan State wins.
Yep.
Matt, you got to go with Auburn, right? Don't be the homer on the couch.
You know, I think so. Let me just do a little scene setting because part of me wants my bracket to do well, and the other part of me wants this rivalry because I keep thinking about back to that regular season finale. What happened at center court with Sparty and Trey Holloman getting into it with Fat Brooks from Grand Rapids Catholic Central, who, by the way, I had a chance to cover him in high school a lot. He is a nice, quiet kid who doesn't like the spotlight very much. So the fact that he got into it with Trey Holloman, a little pushing and shoving, I just have this vision in my head of them opening up with a cold open of that moment at Sparty at center court. And whoa, wouldn't that give you chills? And as Michigan and Michigan State fans, a lot of anxiety too, to see your arch rival be the only thing that stands between you and a Final Four. I kind of hope it happens. Like if it happens and my bracket's busted for that, I think I'd enjoy it even more.
And I know we're all, we're focusing on Michigan State. Look at the other side that could happen with an
yeah.
Auburn-Ole Miss matchup in an SEC takeover for the Elite Eight. So there's a lot of dynamics in this region right here.
I think that's the beauty of the chalk is we're not going to see a Mountain West team get blown out by 30 in the Sweet 16. We're going to have good games all across the board, which is very exciting. We will be back this time next week if Michigan or Michigan State are in the Final Four. So hopefully you'll see us this time next week. But for Matt, Steven, Maddie, Blake, I'm Jacob. Sweet 16 games on Friday night. See you then.